Dan Andrews closes the construction industry for 2 weeks. Is it a punishment? Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein or cup of coffee today, and let's have a look at what's happening in Victoria with the construction industry. Now, I'm sure all of you have seen the footage of the protests that happened in front of the CFMEU. People angry at union officials and the union who supports mandates for vaccination in the construction industry. Workers who are frustrated that, well, it's not just all the tea room that was reported, or it looked like when they're taking their tea break in the middle of bloody road. There's a group of them that are frustrated with the requirements for mandatory vaccination for construction in Victoria. Now, I think it's funny that unionists are angry at state intervention, considering they're unionists, but, there you go. That's how it is. I can understand where they're coming from. There are people here that are going to be scared and worried that they can't afford or won't be able to work and won't be able to support their families. Let's have a look at this media release from the Premier. So, due to continued concern about case numbers, transmission risk, and reduced compliance, construction will shut down in metropolitan Melbourne and other local government areas currently in lockdown for 2 weeks from 11:59 p.m. Monday the 20th of September, so yesterday. Recently, we have seen multiple outbreaks linked to construction. Construction workers are a mobile workforce who may work across multiple sites and travel longer distances to work than other permitted workers. Concerns have also been raised and remain about the sector's compliance with public health measures and directions. Also concerning is the transmission risk and geographic spread of construction cases, which led to a number of important public health measures, including preventing workers crossing the regional metropolitan border, but more action is required to stop the spread. The immediate shutdown action is being taken to reduce movement, minimize transmission, and allow for the entire industry to appropriately adapt to the Chief Health Officer's directions, including increased vaccination rates. All construction projects in metropolitan Melbourne, the City of Ballarat, City of Greater Geelong, Surf Coast Shire, and Mitchell Shire will be closed, with a strict limited exemption for workers to attend the site to respond to an emergency or perform urgent and essential work to protect health and safety. An amnesty will be put in place so that a limited number of workers can attend construction sites in order to shut them down safely. Oh, isn't that nice? All government construction projects in metropolitan Melbourne and relevant LGAs will be closed, with no new work to be completed other than work required to make the site safe and secure. All sites will be required to demonstrate compliance with Chief Health Officer directions prior to reopening, including the requirement for workers to show evidence to their employer of having had one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine before they return to site on the 5th of October. From 11:59 p.m. the 23rd of September, all construction workers require at least their first dose of the vaccine. This means that before workers return to site, they must comply with this new requirement. The Victorian Government will work with stakeholders over coming days to determine the best way for the industry to show full compliance with the directions. The government will continue to work with the industry to get as many workers vaccinated as possible, with the priority blitz continuing until Sunday the 26th of September, including walk-up appointments without a booking available at key sites. And you can find more information there. You can get a COVID-19 disaster payment to help workers unable to earn income due to the public health orders, and more information from here. So let's look at the quotes from Tim Pallas. We've been clear. If you don't follow the rules, we won't hesitate to take action. Well, we've clearly seen that, haven't we? We have seen widespread non-compliance across the industry, and that's why we're taking necessary steps to protect every single Victorian. We put the industry on notice just a week ago, and we have seen appalling behaviour on site and on our streets, and now we're acting decisively and without hesitation. This is from the Minister of Health, a quote. The health and safety of every Victorian is our number one priority. That goes for construction workers too, who get priority access to the vaccine appointment, so they get a privilege there. So how has the CFMEU responded to the protests that we saw? This is Well, we're learning something new here because apparently union members are alt-right, guys. That's how it goes. Okay? They condemn the extreme far-right extremist violence from a union, a militant union condemning violence. What world are we living in? What's going on? It's just nuts. You know what? I'm gonna transfer my cup of coffee to my Stein, so we get the authentic Stein experience. What's going on, guys? The CFMEU condemns in the strongest possible terms the attack on the CFMEU Victorian branch office and the mindless acts of violence perpetrated by members of the mob. I mean, unions are just cartels, everyone. They're cartels that use their mob to control portions of the labour industry and get political power and, well, benefits for the members of the union. And the problem is that, well, everyone else pays for it, guys. It increases the cost of construction. It increases the cost of other goods and services. If you're in there, in the cartel, fantastic. You reap the benefits, but it drives down wages for those that aren't. This crowd was heavily infiltrated by Neo-N and other right-wing extremist groups. And it is clear that a minority of those who participated were actually union members. So they're dismissing the whole mob, essentially. They're saying, no, it's not us, because, I mean, the CFMEU, and we'll see the Master Builders of Victoria, they both support the mandate because I'm assuming they want to get back to work. We thank the officials, delegates, and rank-and-file members of the union who came to protect their office and their officials. And note that a number of people received minor injuries from acts of violence, including the throwing of bottles. We also thank officials and members from other construction unions and other trade unions who stood in solidarity with us. The unions will continue to defend its members' rights to work safely across Australia, and we will not be intimidated from doing our job. These are not actions of people who care about their workmates and the construction industry. These are actions of extremists or people manipulated by extremists. Okay? They're extremists or manipulated by extremists, or maybe they're just afraid. Maybe they're just afraid. So, and this is from the Master Builders. Master Builders of Victoria welcomes the introduction of mandatory vaccinations in building and construction industry. Now, guys, you've got to remember, we already have mandatory vaccinations in a lot of other sectors of our community. You've got it for healthcare, everyone. You've got it to access childcare. Welfare is even restricted. If people their children aren't immunized, then they don't have access to the same family tax benefit amounts as other people. And family tax benefit, it cuts off at such a low amount of revenue, it is pretty much welfare. So you've got to understand that has been going on for a long time, and that's part of our culture here in Australia. I think some people are just starting to realize what we have forced on others as a society, what we've considered appropriate as a society. Everyone seems to think Australia is some carefree country. We're a bloody nanny state, a nanny state to the 10th degree, and that's why I see all this stuff. I'm just not surprised. I'm not surprised. Are people shocked that now they're going to have to put up with the restrictions that we've put on others? Maybe it's time some people took a bit more political interest. How many of the CFMEU members, happily voted Labor in, voted Dan Andrews in? Maybe they shouldn't have. Just wonder. So, the Master Builders of Victoria has welcomed today's announcement, and this is a few days ago, 16th, by the Victorian Government to introduce mandatory vaccinations in the building and construction industry. To continue working, construction workers statewide will need to show evidence to their employer that they have their first dose of COVID-19 vaccine by the 11:59, Thursday the 23rd of September. They're not giving you much time. Limited medical exemptions and proof of booking exceptions will apply, in line with previous requirements for residential aged care workers. As several COVID-19 cases have emerged from the building and construction sector in recent weeks, MBV CEO Rebecca Casson said it's become evident that mandatory vaccination in the state's building and construction workers is the only way to move our industry forward. Our sector is Victoria's fourth largest, accounts for 46% of the state tax revenue, and employs more than 320,000 Victorians directly and more indirectly. Every single day our industry is locked down. The projected figures suggest 455 million lost in revenue and 63 million lost in wages as well. Our industry's continued operation is the reason our state economy is not declining. However, we acknowledge that our industry's obligations to continue to work comes with sufficient responsibilities. That's one of the reasons Master Builder Victoria's Council of Management this week resolves to restate our organisation's support for the COVID-19 vaccinations must be mandated by the Victorian Government. I mean, here's the thing. These organisations want the government to make it mandatory, so it's not going to fall on the responsibility of the builders or the small business people. And I can understand that. You want the government to implement it, to put their foot down, so small businesses people can keep going because they don't want to have their sites locked down and restricted. They just want to get their work done. See, I can see where she's coming from. But there you go. Who would have thought this would be happening in Australia a couple of years ago, guys? Who would have thought? Without mandatory vaccinations, she said it would be extremely challenging for building and construction industry employers to get all their employees back to work and for our industry to fully reopen. To even get back to 50% capacity on building sites, 90% of our workforce must have had the jab by the 23rd of September. This is an extremely high measure which can only realistically be achieved through mandatory vaccinations. That's why MBV has been discussing mandatory vaccinations with the government, because our industry cannot survive on a pilot light forever. Nevertheless, our message has been very clear. Get the jab done for you, your workmates, and for Victoria. For Victoria. An extensive industry campaign is now running, including MBV billboards across the city and regional Victoria to highlight this important message. I don't know if that's going to encourage people or if that'll harden people against it. Over the weekend, MBV will also work with the Victorian Government to secure priority vaccination access for our industry. This was a good win for our members in our sector. 20,000 priority Pfizer jabs and unlimited AZ. Poor AstraZeneca. It really is the poor cousin, isn't it? However, taking advantage of priority access to vaccination is now key. IncoLink has already started on-site vaccination programs, the first of its kind in Australia, and drive-in vaccination hubs for our industry will soon begin. Ms. Carson said it was important to remember that any Victorian, including building and construction workers, can also book to get vaccinated with their local GP or selected pharmacists across the state. So, what's the solution and the takeaway to this? Let's have a bit of a talk. What we're seeing here is just the natural progression of, voting for a political class that are happy to take away our rights more and more. I mean, I don't feel sorry for any Labor voter that's been subjected to this. I mean, Liberal voters aren't much better. But, how many of them are calling for, you need to pay your tax, you need to pay your fair share, get jealous when anyone makes any money. We need to take away this privilege. Oh, you can't deduct that, that's horrible. Oh, more responsibility on the employers. All this is doing, all these organizations are doing are looking to minimize responsibility on employers. Because that's how some governments will weasel out of it. They'll make it, it's the employer's job responsibility, not ours. Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, if you're frustrated, you need to vote in libertarians, frankly. People who want you to have individual choice and liberty at the forefront of everything. We need to have a mix of people in our parliament. And maybe LDP, maybe some of the other ones. We need a mix. Just remember that. The same person who's happy to take all your money, feels like you've got a right to your fair share, is now the same person that's forcing you to undergo this to work. You think the unions are the good guys? No different to any other big business these days. What do you reckon, everyone? Anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. Sign up for SelfWealth or Stake. Use our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.